Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous. We're recording.
Uh-oh.
Welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I am your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Salas. Micah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I got my daughter's sleep problem fixed. She had a little relapse. She's 3, but waking up in the middle of the night, we had to lay in bed with her, and then we said, you know what? Put our foot down. We bought a course. We paid about, you'd enjoy this, Trey. We paid about almost $300 for a course on how to put your kid to sleep. But, most of the stuff in the course we kind of knew, but it's kind of just hearing it, and there was a couple of things that helped. Anyways, 3 days later, she slept through the night after about 3 weeks
Uh,
of waking up and all that fun stuff. So
totally get it. We've still got. I mean, we've got one sleeping in the bed with us for like a year, so no judgment here. Um, Today's episode, you are taking the reins, but I think we discussed three BOR myths that we are busting today. And when I say we, I mean you. And then we're also going to talk about a few more things at the end of that and answer some questions from the community. But without further ado, let me turn it over to you and let's start busting some myths.
let's go. I gotta say your newsletter this week inspired me because you told a story about myself getting an AOR, a BOR, and in one of those bullet points you pointed out, you mentioned construction contractors. They're not supposed to ever sign AORs. So many of you probably know this story, but for those who don't, I'll share it quickly. But when I first got in the industry on the agency side, it was, hey, AOR or nothing, and I was totally shocked. But within that agency, also we had acquired another agency that was a construction specialist, and that's all they did. But a lot of the older guys were like, the contractors will never sign AORs. They just won't. They have to bid out all their work. Blah blah blah. Well, sometimes ignorance is really a good thing because I was just like, whatever. And I chose not to trust them, and I chose just to follow the process and the roadmap put ahead of me. And I learned real quickly that contractors do sign AORs, and they're actually really, really loyal people. And and I love working with them. And here I am now, been an agent. I've been an agent 13 years, but an independent agent, not a marketing rep for I think 10. And like you say in your post, I mean, I don't know how many clients have been hired by over the 10 years, but you know, dang near 100, I don't know. But and all those almost being AORs. So, 80% to 90% have been done via agent of record letter. So I think that kind of settles that myth right there. And so the myth number one is industry type does fill in the blank. It doesn't work on AORs, right? I think trucking would be another one where I know you've talked to some guys in our communities that have kind of dispelled that myth. Now, it doesn't mean that, again, this isn't saying that quoting doesn't make sense and you can't pick your spots, but it's just saying that if you're going to make a blanket statement like I'm going after this industry, they don't sign AORs, you're missing out on a ton of opportunity. So that is myth number one. Um, Myth number two is this one always kills me too. Um, Winning an account on an agent of record letter is equivalent to like stealing another person's work. And this is always said by the agent who's losing the account, right? Um, you know, I, we've gone on the rants like this before. Like when insurance agents call themselves risk architects and whatever, this is our intellectual property. It's like, dude, not really. I mean, ISO regulates insurance, and they have pretty standardized forms. And yeah, there's skill obviously, and and relationships involved in putting these things together and working with underwriters. But it's not like you're looking at yourself like you're too high up, right? You're over kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like when someone's like they think they're bigger than they are.
You had an inflated sense of ego.
Yeah, yeah. And so, anyways, yeah. So that one just kills me. That one really kills me. Because you're not stealing anything. That agent is still getting. This is why it's a myth. The agent is still getting. First of all, they're getting paid through the end of that policy term. So you're not taking money off their plate. You're not stealing anything from them. It's just that they put that contract in place, and you're taking it over before it renews, so the client can potentially go with you or whatever other markets that you find. So it's a whole new policy term. You're taking over for that. Yeah, you're servicing it. So you're the one actually working for free, and I'm saying all this stuff because hopefully when you're out there in the trenches, I've experienced this, and hopefully you can use this to get out ahead of things, right? And maybe forewarn your clients and your new clients about what their agent might come back to them saying. So just, be proactive with this, but just know that that's totally a myth. Don't shy away if a client kind of says, are you stealing their work? Be like, no, we're definitely not. And say that with full confidence, because you're not. So I don't think they're shady at all. Actually, kudos to Charles Specht. He does mention this a lot on his content about BORs being the most ethical approach, actually. And I would, I don't know if it's the most ethical. I don't think it's more ethical than quoting necessarily. I just think transparency and honesty is the best way to go, right? And so if you are honest with what a BOR does before you get it, and you're fully transparent about it firing their agent and all that, then there's nothing unethical at all about an AOR. And then the third thing that you might hear or might kind of make you pause or kind of be like, I don't know if I should pursue AORs. And this could come from within, other agents, or it could come from externally, but this view that, it's the lazy way out, right? I don't want to take over another man's work. And this kind of ties to E&O, right? I don't want to our agency doesn't want to get an errors and omissions against it. I don't know the case law, so I'm not going to say that's a totally, that couldn't happen. But again, if the other agent put the policy in place, and you're very clear with the client, hey, they put this in place, they're getting paid, I'm just servicing it. And also there's all these issues. We'll try to fix those this term, but I don't know if we'll be able to until renewal. If you're honest and have all that documented, there's really, in my opinion, not a whole lot that if there was a major claim that could be brought against you. And I don't think they would have a lot of legs to stand on it. And I think it would all come back on the former agent, right, at that point. So maybe I'm wrong. If I am, if you're a legal person out there, let us know. But I think if you're being honest with the client, pointing out all the issues, you don't have anything to worry about. And it's just not lazy at all. And we'll get into that here. I'll let you kind of chime in on some of these. But it's not lazy at all, because there's a lot of work that comes after getting the AOR, right? It's not like you just get the AOR and you're done. So, news flash for anyone listening. If that's what you think an AOR is, like, I just got to get the agent record letter, get it signed, I'm good to go. It's not that easy either. I know some people out there make it seem like that's it, like your life's, rainbows and butterflies after you get that. But there's a lot of hard work, and there's also a lot of pressure because you got to live up to what you just promised. And we'll talk about that in the next segment here. But before I go there, Trey, I know you probably have some thoughts on some of these myths, or maybe not. If you don't, that's cool.
So, not really. I mean, I think you hit all of it. I have told this story 100 times, and it's was talking with another dad whose son plays with my son. He's a mid-market guy, and excuse my French, but he said BORs are for pussies, and wow. I was like, I don't understand, and it's because in his mind, all he knows is the BOR from 1995. You know what I mean? Like when the competition comes and says, "Oh, hey, I'm blocked here. Can you sign this piece of paper?" You know what I mean? But that's not what we advocate for. I don't think that's what most people advocate for. I mean, look at the due diligence process and the way that you have set up from A to Z before you even get to asking, would you like to work together? I mean, there's a lot. It is the opposite of the lazy way. I wrote a newsletter a while back called The Lazy Producer's Way to a Million. And it was basically making the argument that cold prospecting plus BORs was the way to do that. But it's not actually that it's lazy. It's just that it takes less time. But we'll go into that in another section. Go ahead. Back to you, Bob.
You never told me that story, but that's funny, man. It's that would make a good like LinkedIn post, I think, or something like, winning
Yeah.
clients by quoting is so 1999, or quoting is quoting is, so 1990s. I don't know.
Well, his argument was like, well, you can't get to know a client. What I know from a client through quoting is just gonna, and I'm like, go ahead, and this guy does a lot of like property stuff, and so it
Yeah.
makes sense to quote that a lot because there's a gazillion different markets and different ways to layer stuff and yada yada yada. I get it. I get it.
And I'm
But
glad you said that.
I,
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's kind of a good segue. It's like you can't understand a client without quoting. I think that's a really good segment. And because you still are quoting, we're still quoting, right? We're just getting hired first before wasting our time and resources and actually maybe hurting the client in terms of the market side of things. So we're changing the order of things. That's all you're doing, right? And you're making a proposal to the client to be hired first without going to market. And that's all you have to, that's the mindset shift. And it's difficult. And that's why I like the real estate analogy, though. They do it all the time. Real estate agents do that. I've done it for decades. We hire a real estate agent. We agree to a commission once the deal is sold. And so if you get an AOR, I mean, the client could still leave you. I heard horror stories of like getting an AOR like 10 months, 10 months out from the X date. And then the client talks to some other agent and basically shops and leaves that new agent they hired. And so you and your team just worked for free on an account. So that is one of the downsides of of getting an AOR really early. Although I would still say, this is off topic a little bit, I would still say get the AOR whenever you can, after you've checked the boxes and make sure you can service it properly. There's not gonna be a bunch of hiccups. So, anyways, okay. So I want to talk about what to do, especially this is important during a hard market. Like and I know this because I've experienced it like 2, 3 times now. Um, what to do when you want to get an AOR in a hard market to make sure that you don't look like a total idiot, right? And that you don't leave the client sitting there thinking like, you're worse than my other agent. I should have just stayed put, right? And if that happens, that means you didn't do some things properly in the setup, right? So I'm going to talk through kind of the setup and then what happens after getting the AOR. And if you do this stuff, it'll help you avoid looking like an idiot, I think. And it'll keep that client longer, regardless of how the actual results, what you're delivering in terms of results from a premium standpoint. All right. So um, the first thing is, you got to follow our process first because before you even, you know, look at the policies, right? Don't
shameless plug.
Yeah. Well, you got to look at. Well, you got to. People are preaching get an AOR without looking at policies. I mean, you got to get the
Yeah.
reason you want to
I
get.
want to ask you about that after this.
Okay.
I want to ask you about that after this. Go ahead.
Okay. So the reason you got to get policies and you want to actually have conversations is so first of all, you can take over the program. I mean, I had to walk away. I had 2 deals I couldn't get 50 grand in revenue because I didn't have markets. Now, if I'd have went in there and just preached AOR, hire me right away from the get go without doing due diligence, I would have kind of looked like an idiot. Um, and then you're backtracking and the client's like, wait, did everything you tell me about the insurance game, does that make sense? And so yeah, so the first thing is do your proper due diligence. It's not just for the client, it's also to make sure that you can work with these people, right? So get their policies and have a research call. And to your guy's point, who called, people who quote or don't quote, basically pansies. um, that's where we're learning about the client. You're having a detailed conversation about not only their insurance program, their operations. Essentially, you're kind of getting 90% of the information you put on an application anyways, right? So take good notes during that time frame. But then when you come back and present, this is really important. Don't over so okay, box 1 checked. You can AOR it. You've checked all those boxes. But box 2, when you go and present, don't make promises that you can't control. Not that you can't keep, that you can't control. You can't control pricing. So I would never make a promise on pricing. Now, that doesn't mean you don't talk about, this is the other problem with AORs, and I see where a lot of people flop. They don't talk pricing at all. And so they just literally talk coverage gaps and like service
Service
and
calendars.
yeah, values. And that's great. That's awesome. We should talk about that. But if you don't talk premium, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities to pick up AORs. Um, so it's almost like a spectrum. Like either people don't talk premium at all because they're afraid of looking like a dummy, right? Or they maybe basically say, I know I can save you 25%. Sign this AOR, right? Both sides are wrong. And you got to, the spot you want to be at, and this is why I love our due diligence process, is the benchmark data is so important in the market analysis, because you can talk premiums and stuff without like setting yourself up to fail. And so how you do that is pull a sample of a couple clients that are very similar to the client you're talking to. All you need is 2 to 3. Even 2 is fine. 2 other people to compare your prospect to. Look at their GL rates. Look at their auto rates. Look at their work comp rates, their property rates, whatever you're comparing, their big lines of equipment, their equipment rate, and just put a table and just say here. And at the top, I put competitor A and B and U, and I'll put like, here's their size. So you kind of go what size company, and then here's their premiums they're paying or their rates. And then I just do just a table. That's it. And as I'm talking about this and showing it, I'm mentioning all the nuance. Like, hey, this is obviously claims have a determining factor on this, right? Like where they're located, but these are similar industries. And so what you'll see happen is if there's a huge disparity in like their equipment rate is 6 times their competitors, you don't have to say anything. The client will just kind of realize that, right? And then that market feedback you get from calling the underwriters is important too. Like, hey, this guy's never even seen anything. He's never even seen your account in 5 years. I don't know why that is. I'm just raising that point to you. You don't have to make the other agent look bad. You just raise these points. But as you're talking about the premium part, you're not promising anything. You're not saying I will get you here. You're showing it, like I don't know why this difference is here, but it makes me question things, or it makes me think there's opportunity. I believe my goal would be to get you here, but I don't want you to think that I can do that for sure. Don't hire me because of this. I will literally be that. Like, don't hire me because you think I will do this. This is just one piece of what I think I'll bring to the table through. And then after that, I lay out a marketing plan. Here's how I think I'll help you achieve the premiums I think we can get you to. Right now, you might lay out these tables, and there's no, they're getting a great rate, but I still think the client seeing the numbers, it brings like a peace of mind to them, or at least you addressed it with them if you instead of just talking coverage. All right, so uh, the other step after you've done that, now let's say they want to get to the end of the presentation, they want to hire you, or you talk through like, okay, here's the AOR process, or here's the next steps. Make sure you lay out the potential hangups or issues. Now, what I mean by this is, okay, you've already checked to make sure the carriers will honor the AOR, that all that stuff. But some of them will only let you service it. They won't let you make policy changes, right? And so that means that if the client wants to add a vehicle or endorse a policy or change something, they have to go to their other agent, or maybe, so that's one thing that could happen. There's also an issue where, gosh, what was I going to say? Oh, I know. There's the interim period, right? There's a 5 to 10 day waiting period, right? So you might have to go to 2 agents for that 10-day window. So it's going to be kind of awkward, but your agent still has the duty to service you. So that's all I would say on that one. Just talk through the client, be very transparent about what happens when the AOR is processed. Okay, then the third thing or fourth thing, do a full-blown marketing effort. I'm like, when you first win an account, you don't just say they're with the best market. Even if you think they are, do a full-blown marketing effort. And along with that, though, the current carrier is not your enemy. So a lot of times current underwriters get all worried, like, oh my gosh, no, that doesn't mean we're taking the account. I'd say probably over half of my accounts that we AOR, we keep with the carriers. Sometimes it's just going and poking them a little bit more. Be like, dude, you guys are overpriced in this. They really like you. Can you get down in line here? And a lot of times carriers will, yeah, we'll do that. So I think that's an important thing to mention, because carrier relationships are important. And then the last thing is just deliver in a timely fashion and keep them informed. And so actually, let me go back to the previous point. I said do a full-blown marketing effort. And as part of that, you got to build out a narrative, spend an hour. So this is where you're spending an hour with the client to really fill out the supplemental applications, to do all the lists, to talk through, build out a narrative if you don't have good notes from your research call, all that stuff. Review their losses at this point and just make sure, ask questions on what they've done to correct, bad behaviors. And so that's what I mean by full-blown marketing effort. Okay, now final step, deliver in a timely and fashion, keep them informed. I found, especially when a client hires you via AOR for the first time, they've always quoted in the past and maybe been with their agent for a long time, over communicate. Just like, be like, hey, our goal is to deliver this 3 weeks prior. But then 3 weeks prior to that, so 6 weeks out, so be giving them updates, right? Hey, just FYI, Steve wanted to keep you in the loop. We still got 3 markets looking at this besides your current pricing is, I think it's going to be in line, maybe some opportunities to increase it or to decrease, whatever. If it's going to be bad news, let them know right away. But if you're AOR during a hard market, just again, don't overpromise, and you have to prep that client. Be like, hey, even if you hire me, the market's doing this, so you're going to see an increase on this line of coverage. And if you're letting them know that before they even sign an AOR, it's going to make you look a lot better when it's actually delivered and you're delivering an increase, right? And they're not like, oh my gosh, I'm second guessing my decision. So, man, I feel like I blabbed on there forever. I don't know if you found that
I do
helpful.
too. No, it's actually I zoned out for a second. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah.
No,
I don't know.
just kidding. So here, a couple of things. So I just want to reiterate because this was kind of always one of my biggest hangups is, well, what happens if I bring them a big increase? So do you want to talk on just a case study as to where you BOR it, you come in and the best that was available is a huge increase, and like, how did that go over? What did you do to prep them for it? I mean, I just kind of, just to show people there's
Yeah.
as many times as you come in and lower, you're going to come in and increase. And so,
Yep.
you got to be prepared for that, and you got to be properly positioned from the jump.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think like I talked about, hopefully you know that before you even get an AOR, that you know that what the market's doing, or their losses are awful, right? And you're basically addressing that right up front. And then you're just communicating early on in the process as you begin shopping and marketing. And that's really all. There's no magic bullet or anything you can do to avoid that. But I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's all you can do. And I've never had, I say that buyers can live with premium increases, but they'll fire you over surprise premium increases, right? Last minute surprise premium increases. Premium increases delivered early are manageable, right? Premium increases delivered late and unexpectedly are fireable. And that's, I think, an important to live by as a producer. It's tough to have those conversations, but you got to just have them. And if you keep waiting, every week that passes is just going to make it that much harder.
Good point. All right. You got anything else before we jump into some questions?
No, yeah, hit me with a couple questions and can wrap it up.
All right. Un momento, por favor. Okay. Been using the "Are you in charge of" script lately. It's been going great, but more often than not, when I ask if they do any due diligence, they say yes in some way or another. I've answered it a few ways with varying success, but curious how y'all might handle this. Do you ask what that looks like for them? Ask how it's worked out over the past few years, ask if it's led to any changes. Curious on how you might address this, or good questions to peel the onion.
I mean, I think he kind of answered the question there almost, within his question. Hey, what do you guys do from a due diligence standpoint? We have an agent they quote every single year. Hey, totally get that. But I was actually just more curious, like, do you guys ever do any sort of external due diligence? I only ask because, ultimately I hear from a lot of buyers, like when it comes to insurance, they're a little bit frustrated with the thought of like making a decision kind of in a vacuum. They have to blindly trust their agent, and that's, and they just feel like, well, that's just the way it is. So I'm just curious, do you guys ever do any sort of external due diligence? That's a great one to kind of keep the conversation going. And then they might say, well, we do bring other agents from time to time. Okay, well, what's that looked like? Are they getting quotes for you? Sorry.
Yellow? Somebody else calling you to hire you?
I'm here. Sorry. That's the downside of doing this on my phone is when I get a phone call, I cut out.
Got it.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's that's how I would respond to that. And here's the other thing: you're gonna
Uh,
get most people are gonna be ultimately happy. Happy, right? You're not gonna get like. I think sometimes we look for the silver bullet. Like if you can just increase your meetings from 10. I'm just using a stupid number here. 30 a year to 40 or 35, so 5 to 10 extra opportunities by just asking maybe a little bit better of a question. That's a victory. And I think sometimes we're looking for it to go from, oh, if I say this one thing that'll take me from 30 to 70. No, dude. There's nothing out there that will do that. So
yeah, I think that's what I have fallen into the trap of in the past, and that I have learned just from watching you over the years is there. Sure, there are people who are just absolutely could sell, ice to Eskimos on the phone, but more than anything, not like 90% of it is just picking up the phone. Like even like you don't have to be that great on the phone. And like newsflash, there really is no magical script. There's scripts that are better than others, but like just getting on the phone and continuing to plow through until you find that low hanging fruit or until you find that person who's willing to do some due diligence. I think we look for the next super cool secret strategy. Um, and I mean, you're definitely better on the phone than I am, and I'm better on the phone than others. But at the end of the day, like just getting on the phone is kind of the secret sauce. I tell you, the thing that I like the most, like every single call I make where I am not with uh a nice like a market play. I'm calling for due diligence and BOR. It is what do you guys do any sort of due diligence, regardless of what they say? Like I literally say the same thing. Like I just kind of wait for them to answer, and I say, yeah, a lot of people out there are happy with their current agent, but every once in a while they just kind of wonder, like, hey, am I leaving something on the table? Is there better pricing? Is there a coverage I don't know? And that's
yep,
why I'm calling. I can provide you those answers without disrupting your relationship with your broker. And that
yep,
either just getting to that is if I get to that and they're still not interested, I just move on.
yeah. No, that's great. That makes a ton of sense.
Um, Next question. How many accounts? Question mark. I'm going on year 3 of my middle market career and am also less than 90 days out from, I think he means his draw ending. For middle market producers with less than 5 years, what is your ideal number of clients and revenue per client? I know the data tells us to follow Pareto's law and the rule of 80-20, yada, yada, yada. So basically, like 3 years in, how many clients should he have and
hmm
what size should he have?
Well, I mean, I have this kind of mindset that I say the free agent, right? And so you want to be free, free from your first of all, first freedom to get is your validation number. So, but then the second thing to be truly free is what number do you need, right? What do you need as a producer? If your goal is to get to $1 million book, great. 800, 2 million, 3 million. I don't know. Only you can really answer that question. But you have to realize, and I know this because well, I've talked to agents who get past like the 1.5 to 2 mil mark. What starts to happen is if you have really high aspirations is you just run out of time, right? You can't effectively service your clients and just don't have the capacity because even with a great service team, there's still involvement on your end, right? It's not like you just literally sell and go right the next one. That doesn't happen. At least if you want to be, control the relationship. So then the question is, well, if you want to get that big, then you still have to start to go after really, really big accounts. But if your goal is just a million, and let's just say you're getting a 50-50 split or a 40-40, you're like, man, I'm cool with 400 grand a year. I would say you could probably do that. You could, you know, you, I'd think 20 to 25,000 average revenue is a good goal, because the reason I like that is it's kind of like a diversification play. Like if you're investing, like it's just like you could lose one or two accounts in a year, but if you're always writing, 150 of revenue a year, you're going to offset that, no problem, and give yourself a little pay raise. So that's kind of where, I like to target. And then of course we have our big accounts that we want, that we hope to get every year and we go after. And every year I probably get, you know, 3 to 4 cracks at 6-figure type accounts. Um, or just 75K, 50 to 50K plus, I consider a pretty good win, right? Like, not good win, but just a bigger account. And so, but there's a ton of businesses in the 10 to 25K space, 10 to 30 space that are very underserved, and they're not that much work, right? I mean, they're pretty low maintenance. If you just get some COIs issued and just meet with them twice a year, they're pretty good. So it's a tough question to answer. Um, if you were 3 years in and you had a $500,000 book, but you had 3 big wins and that was it, I would be a little concerned actually, because with all the acquisition stuff going on, or just one client, all it takes is for them to leave you and you're screwed. And so that's where I like, when you're building your first 1, 2, 3 years out, to actually write a bunch of 10, 15, 20. Now, I don't really like to focus on stuff below. In my mind, I'm always thinking, okay, 15K or higher, because then inevitably I'm going to fall into stuff that's 10 to 15. But if if you have a little bit of whatever your target is, shoot a little bit higher, because you're going to inevitably fall into smaller stuff. So like, I actually should re-say that I usually go for 20K at this point or higher, but and then I end up just every year writing stuff 10 to 20, but then a lot of stuff, 30 to 50. So but if that's set your bar wherever.
I do.
Just, yeah, go ahead. I'm kind of
let me throw this in there. It's also important to remember that Micah is in Texas, an air thing bigger in Texas, and they got a whatever niche you're in. They got 10 of them where you're at, and they got 5 million of them where Micah is. So I'm not saying numbers are relative. Numbers are relative. I'm just telling you, like it is different. I know you have more competition, and then so that creates whatever. I'm not saying that to take anything away from what you have or haven't done. I'm just saying you guys can literally walk outside and take a piss, and you're going to pee on $100,000 revenue's doorstep.
I don't know about that, but yeah,
yeah. Y'all got 10 to 50K coming out your ears. Now, me in Louisiana, my threshold's kind of 10, and then I'll go back to 5. I've even written some 2,500s.
So have I. So have I, by the way, dude. I'm all for that. I mean,
but I'm just saying the number of 50Ks you guys have, like anyways, if you know who Commercial Insurance Guy is on Twitter, I'm not going to say where he is, but I know where he's at. He's got a nice size book on 5 to 10K, 5 to 15K. Really nice book, and he knows what the hell he's doing. So, I think it's just all about reverse engineering what you want out of this career. If you want to do little service work and just build relationships and, put it in cruise control once you hit 1 million, then do it that way. If you want to also, be an inbound sales rep, like I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was on Twitter, and he's like, man, I don't know what you guys are talking about having all this time. He's like, I've got 10 inbound calls every day. I'm like, well, we're not doing the same job. Not that one's better or worse, but he's just a small biz rep. Basically, he's going to have 300 clients and be doing, 30 renewals every month. If that's the game you want to play, go for it. It's not the game I want to play, but
no, those are really valid points. And also the industry matters too, because I don't think the same revenue, 10K of revenue on a manufacturing is probably different than 10K of revenue on a construction account, right? From your workload standpoint, for your team at least.
That's true. Okay, last question, and then we'll get out of here. This says, I know this is a fiery group of cold callers, but curious, anyone doing anything else cool? I've been doing mailers and actually got 2 accounts off of it, 5K and 6K in revenue, super targeted, combined with phone and email, but they called me after the letter. So, questions on anything cool? I'll start on this one. I wrote a newsletter on how to write an extra 10 to 50K a year on direct mail. It is no longer on the blog because I have since archived everything.
Wow, look at you, so sly.
Playing the scarcity game. So maybe I'll put that out soon, or maybe I'll sell it for a small fee. No, I'm just kidding. I'll repost it soon. But anyways, basically, it's pretty simple. If you want to do direct mail, email, doesn't matter. It just comes down to knowing your numbers. I've written a decent amount of trucking, transportation with mailers. If you can do a lumpy mail, that's always good. You know, get some little postcard and then have some type of tchotchke in there so that when they, receive it, number one, it's appealing because it's not just a flat thing. It's got some type of volume to it. And also they call it lumpy mail because it has to go on top, because literally they can't put anything on top of it or fall off. So it has to be on the top of the stack. Also write it in handwritten. So it just looks like a personal invitation or something. So if you've never heard of lumpy mail, go Google it. You'll learn about it. And then email. I mean, dude, they've got these databases and stuff where you can hook up email campaigns and just hammer the crap out of people. We knew a producer up in Washington that was doing that really well, and there's plenty of ways to win. But at the end of the day, this is actually what I wrote, because I kind of think it's right. And so I've written deals with mailers, calls, drop-ins, emails. It really just comes down to knowing your numbers and then reversing your activity. And the reason why I like cold calling the most is it costs nothing. If you're driving, you got gas, you got time. If you're doing mailers, you got to pay for postage and all that stuff. And I don't have any beef with that. But cold calling and just pick up the damn phone and make a call. So It is the least friction to getting it done.
Yep, those are great tips.
All right, cool. Way to dovetail off that one. That was a real zinger.
I got another phone. I had a phone call pop in.
Oh, here we go. All right. Well, let's end this sucker.
Okay, so I don't even get to chime in on that. Okay.
No, I just segued to you, and you totally shit the bed. It was terrible.
Did you not see? You're not even listening, dude. I just told you I got a phone call coming in, which took my audio off for the split second when you were segueing.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Maybe if you were actually shooting this from any other place but your car. No, creative drops. You could write a book. You could do an ebook, which people are starting to do now. Shout out to everyone doing that. I think those are probably some of the better ways. You could this is something I've done after you make a cold call, which I know is kind of boring, but you get the whole call me back later deal. I'm really, really busy or whatever. If you catch me at a busy time, tax time, so this happened, true story. Call a lady. She's like, hey, I think I want to talk with you. I'm having shoulder surgery. I'll be out for 6 weeks. Call me back in like 8 weeks. I'm like, okay, we'll see. And so it was Friday. I had my little CRM pops up to make the follow-up call. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to send her a Starbucks coffee gift card and say, hey, you've been out for the last 6 weeks. I'm sure you could probably use a little pick me up on your first week back next week, which is this week. I just sent it to her. No sales pitch or anything. Now I'm going to call her back in a week or two to, set the meeting. But I've done that before and it's worked really, really well to actually get the person to pick up the phone and be like, oh, thank you so much. And we get the meeting. I don't always get the sale from it, but that's the whole kind of goal behind that. So I found with e-gifts and email gifts, those are kind of cool because you can see they open them. But the key is I think you can't have like a ulterior motive behind it. It's purely got to be like, hey, I'm sending this to you because I think you'd appreciate it. Here you go. And you're not pitching them like the next day, So I'm going to call her. She told me to follow up. But I'm going to give it like 2 weeks after I just gave her the e-card, So
I can't remember the name of the site, but there's a really big e-gift site that's exactly for this, and I
Yep.
totally forgot the name of it. I'll have to look it up. Let me tell you a quick story real quick about creative thing, then we'll sign off.
Oh, I'm scared. Where's this gonna go?
No, it's totally suitable for work. No, it's just my advice is when you do direct mail or you do lumpy mail, make sure you know how many stamps you're actually supposed to put on the envelope. Because I got a just absolutely furious call from an office manager one time, and she goes like, "You owe me X amount of money," and I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Because a package showed up at the front. It was handwritten in a, like a manila thing, and it had this thing bulging out of it, and it was addressed to the owner. And he's not there, but the mail guy said that, and if I want to receive it, I have to pay the balance on the mailer because I
Oh,
didn't have enough stamps on it." So the office manager, thinking it's a personal package that the owner bought, then shills out the money so that she can open it, only to find out that it's a sales letter from me. And she called me and she ripped me a new one, son. Oh, Kathy wasn't a big
that's
fan of that.
that's
She said,
awesome.
she said, and I quote, "Take me off your effing list forever."
Wow.
I
Wow.
said,
Hey,
"Have
she'll
a great
never
day,
forget
Kathy."
you. She'll never forget you
No,
now.
she won't. No, she won't.
That's epic. That's pretty cool.
True story. I didn't actually know that they could charge you for the remaining postage upon arrival, but
Yeah.
yeah, that didn't go over well.
You should have said, Kathy. You should have done a better job, Kathy. You got 10 years as an office manager experience. You should have known that was a sales letter. Come on, I'm not paying you anything.
That's a gatekeeper my ass. So you need a different job. All right, let's end it there. That's enough rambling. Yeah, all the links you need to know about are in the show notes. If we have one takeaway or one just if you're not on the Max Revenue newsletter, please do that. Everything pretty much works through the newsletter. So updates, what's going on. We send you a newsletter every Sunday on an interesting story or strategies or something that'll make you a better producer. So that's our one ask. Go sign up. Link in the show notes. And with that, we hope you guys have a great week and go kick some ass.
Adios.
All right, see y'all.
See ya.